Good evening. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. If anybody would like one of these agendas, I believe they are right outside the door out back. Before we get started, I'll ask our chairman to please stand and lead us in the pledge.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I had a request just to remind our councilors that when you speak, if you could speak up closer to the microphone, that way folks even in the back can hear you, that would be appreciated. First up, we'll call for the disclosure of any conflict of interest. Is there any councilor who feels they have a conflict of interest on anything they will vote on tonight? No. Next up is the approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Unfinished business, Order 42, 2019.
Move to read by title only.
And second.
All in favor?
An order providing for approval of forfeiture.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Patty, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Bofia?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Counselor Mayu?
Yes.
Counselor Coelho?
Yes.
Counselor Tate?
Yes.
Counselor Thomas?
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Order 43, 2019.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
An order providing for approval of forfeiture.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Could I get a roll call, please?
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Bofia?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Counselor Mayu?
Yes.
Counselor Coelho?
Yes.
Counselor Tate?
Yes.
Counselor Thomas?
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next, Ordinance 44, 2019.
An ordinance providing for revisions to the General Assistance Ordinance. Be it enacted by the Waterville City Council, acting as municipal officers as follows, that revisions to the General Assistance Ordinance, as required by state law and as completed by General Assistance Administrator Linda Fosser, are hereby approved.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Bofia?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Counselor Mayu?
Yes.
Counselor Coelho?
Yes.
Counselor Tate?
Yes.
Counselor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to new business, Resolution 46, 2019.
Move to read by title only.
And second.
All in favor?
A resolution providing for issuance of a victualer's license to Melon To Go LLC.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Next, Resolution 47, 2019.
Move to read by title only.
And second.
All in favor?
A resolution providing for issuance of a liquor license to Melon To Go LLC.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And any discussion? All in favor? Next, Resolution 48, 20, that's supposed to be 2019?
Yes.
2019?
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
A resolution providing for authorizing renewal of liquor licenses to expire between April 1, 2019 and June 30, 2019.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Resolution 49, 2019.
A resolution providing for amendment to downtown TIF district. Be it resolved by the Waterville City Council, acting as the municipal officers, that the council is in support of a proposal to amend the existing downtown tax increment financing TIF district for the purpose of removing 2 buildings currently owned by the Kennebec Realty Partners. Be it further resolved that a new TIF district be developed for review and approval regarding the properties cited above.
Move to adopt.
And second.
And Michael, you want to kick this one off?
A brief introduction. I think the
resolution pretty much says it all. We're talking about two buildings right directly across the street that are already within our downtown TIF district. And the proposal coming from KRP Realty is to pull those two buildings out of the downtown district and create a new district, TIF district, just for those two buildings. The TIF Advisory Committee met yesterday afternoon.
Second
reviewed the
time
proposal.
on this? For the second time on this?
Yes, for the second time on this, and voted to support, to recommend to you the approval of, well, taking them out of this downtown district and creating a new one. And also regarding the request that they've made for a credit enhancement agreement in terms of the term and the reimbursement thereof. So unless there are questions of me,
I just want to point out, because sometimes this can get a little confusing process-wise. The council is not voting tonight to approve a TIF application. However, the TIF committee has met and they feel comfortable with their recommendations as this goes forward. But what we're really looking for, this is so that we can start the application process, A, to remove these buildings from the downtown TIF, and also so that they can get started on an application that will then come back to the council. There will be a public hearing at that point, plus 2 votes. So this is not voting on the approval of a TIF application tonight.
that's
An
yes.
accurate summary.
That's a good description of the process because and a TIF really consists of 2 separate pieces, not to oversimplify it, but you have the creation of the district itself and a program for what happens within that district. And then the second major piece for many TIF districts is a credit enhancement agreement, which then describes the term and the amount of the reimbursement.
Right.
So it's usually 2 things,
But-
creation of the district and the credit enhancement.
And I just want to offer a little bit additional commentary, only because I've been working with the Dupre family for a couple of years now. And this is a family that has been investing in Waterville for over a decade, owns many other properties that they've invested in here. And this is a unique opportunity because one of the things that they have constantly kept at the forefront is trying to champion a project that is for all of Waterville's people and the surrounding communities, and not, just something that maybe a handful of people will want to visit. I'm very supportive of these projects. When you look at the finance of it, the reality is these buildings, anyone in their right mind probably would actually tear those buildings down. But in order to make it so we don't have to do that and we can preserve some of this historic character of our downtown and have a project going, at least attempt to get that off the ground. These guys have done a lot of work. I'm very supportive, and I would encourage the council to move this to the next step.
And I know Reagan La Rochelle is here representing the developers, but if there's any questions of me before I sit down?
So, only because I've gotten calls today and emails back and forth, and I know you just said it, but I'm just clarifying so that everybody understands. We are just moving these from one place, one district to another. There's still a lot of work to be done.
There's still a lot of work to be
Yes.
done. As the mayor said, we've got to advertise and hold a public hearing, and then an order, which requires 2 votes, to actually create the district. And then next comes, at some point after that, the agreement on a credit enhancement.
And just to answer this question in advance as well, some people have asked why create a new district when we already have the downtown district. The way the downtown TIF district works is it was assessed as one kind of parcel when it was done. Since that time that the downtown TIF was created, those buildings have actually lost quite a bit of value. I mean, they sat there and decayed for many years before the Dupre's thankfully bought them and wanted to put an investment there. If they were to stay in the current TIF district, we would almost be starting in a hole, because remember, the city gets no benefit of capturing that additional revenue until there's an increase in value. But whereas those buildings combined have lost roughly, if I get the number right, I think it's around $700,000 in value, the city neither the city nor the developers would see any kind of benefit to that project until they got to the first $700,000 in investment. This allows us to start at zero and immediately start picking up those capital gains for the city.
Anything else for me? Okay.
Is there any questions or from the council or discussion from the council?
Just want to reiterate what the mayor said as far as the Dupree family. I know as well, they are a direct benefit to the city in many ways. Certainly projects, real estate holdings, and some of the things they have done as a whole. So this project, like the mayor has said, I completely support what is being done here and the establishment of this process. I think we couldn't ask, with the economic revitalization going on downtown, to keep everything streamlined and consistent, and for obviously great business entrepreneurship to flourish. This is exactly what the city wants. This is exactly what residents want. I mean, I can't think of a downtown that's going to have as much vibrancy as we are at the tail end of the tunnel here. So this is a very important piece of, coming to the council to promote that type of revitalization to the next front. And everything is going to tie into each other, and I think is very beneficial. And I urge the council to go through this process and meet the recommendations from the TIF committee on this as well.
Just want to make, to touch on that as well. We'll definitely encourage economic development for the city. We'd love to see those investors come in town and bring all those investment here and want to be part of the renaissance happening in Waterville. When I started learning about the TIF, I wasn't very familiar with the TIF process. There's definitely a lot of questions that needs to be answered. Lots and lots of questions, because the more I learn about the TIF, the more questions I have. Right now, I'm in favor of starting the process, but I'm sure that this is going to be a very long process, and I want to make sure that all the facts are put out for the people to know why we're doing certain things and why we're moving with certain projects. And as long as all those facts are put forward to the people, I'm sure we're going to go through this process as smoothly as possible, hopefully.
Thank you. Any questions or commentary from the public? Yes,
Hi.
Sandy.
My name is Sandy Sullivan from Ward 5, and to quote someone that I had a discussion with this afternoon, I'm not trashing this. I just have a question. If the whole downtown was evaluated at one time and put into a big TIF, and it is to the advantage of each piece to be taken out, because the Colby buildings were taken out of that TIF and put in their own. If
Well,
they are
this
taking
piece of the
out-
parking lot was taken out.
Okay,
Yeah.
but if they're taken out, I know the Mitchells have bought other buildings. Why isn't it to everyone's advantage as they buy up the buildings in town to ask for the same thing?
It's a very good question. I would answer that by saying that different buildings are in different standards of shape. Like I know when Bill Mitchell bought the block that he's on down by the Proper Pig and those buildings, they're much different case. If you go to the buildings across here, literally you can see daylight through the roof and there's pigeons up there. It's it depends on the state of the buildings as they're bought, if they're just so decrepit that they should be torn down, or they're going to take more and much more investment than. Like a good example, I guess, would be the building that Colby bought right across here on the corner, actually where Portland Pie is and where CGI is. That was about a $10 million investment roughly, and I think the building's worth probably about $5 million. Now, Colby College with an endowment was able to do that your average, family investor or developer is probably not going to be able to make that kind of sizable investment. A lot of these buildings are in good shape, like the Jorgensen's block is in a good shape and things like that. So we do try to take it project to project, although the TIF committee did discuss getting together and trying to create a much broader overall strategy so the public understands a little bit better. And we have a little bit more of a guidepost so that when people approach the city, it's not taken at this kind of like project to project type scenario.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Can I say
Of course you can.
Also, just to be clear, in order to even be eligible to apply for a TIF, you have to be adding at least $500,000 worth of value to the parcel of property, which in some cases may take an investment of 2 or 3 times that amount of money. And so, that's one reason. The TIFs, anyone who is thinking about making a sizable investment in their building would be eligible to come and talk to the city about a TIF. And I'm sure the city would love to hear that people are wanting to invest millions of dollars in their property. So it certainly is a possibility for anybody else as well. And we have to take each of them on a case-by-case basis.
Julian Payne, Ward 5. Just for the record, I hadn't emailed anyone today about TIFs, but they weren't my emails. So this is a question, is the TIF committee open to the general public when you hold those meetings?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So even though there's X amount of councillors or people, I just thought it's a good way for people to learn about them and see why people came to a certain judgment. So I was wondering if so it's not open to the public when...
We don't advertise it as a public meeting.
Right.
And we do have 3 councillors on, but that is allowed.
Okay, but is the public excluded from attending those meetings if they wanted to learn about it or understand?
If someone were to call and ask to attend, I don't think we'd have any objection.
It depends on the nature of the meeting, Julian, because sometimes we are privy to
Sure.
financial information that the developer doesn't want to be part of the public domain.
And I asked because it clears up a lot of misperception with the community if you actually go and see how they came to the process.
The list of the committee is also public. I'm sure if you contacted any member of the committee, they'd be eager to explain to you any of their thought process on it. Most of the people on the committee have been doing it for quite a few years.
Right.
So they're very well versed in what is a fairly complicated process.
Yeah, and it's also my understanding too that sometimes they give a TIF because without that TIF, there just wouldn't be the funds for the investors to move forward.
That is often the case.
Yeah.
And that's usually the bar that's set for approval. And also, though, it's whether it's beneficial to the city.
Right.
Because the reality is, if it's not beneficial to the city, they're probably not going to be high on the list of consideration.
Well, they probably hash it out pretty well because I'm guessing not everyone always agrees on the committee too, and there's...
But I will say, too, that's why by law, when the application comes forward, we have to have a 10-day notice of a public hearing. We will hold a public hearing, and then there's 2 votes. And that's enshrined in law for the purpose of, for the public being able, when this thing is put together, to ask questions about the specifics and hear about the specifics.
Yeah. Okay, it's good to know. Thank you.
And the city's TIF policy is public information as well, so anyone can read the policy.
Counselor?
Anybody that wants to find out the members of the TIF committee, that's public information as well, right on the Waterville website. And like I said, there are 3 councilors that are on this TIF committee, and I know that I've been privy to taking phone calls and emails, so I am again making myself accessible again to that. If anybody has questions about what the TIFs are and what they mean in context, I'm more than willing to have that conversation with you guys, and including Eric Thomas and Jay Cole, who's also on the committee as well. So please take availability of the access there and get yourself educated if that's what you need to have done, or questions that need to be asked.
Are there any other questions specific to the vote tonight? Would you like to come up, Reagan, for sure? Thank you.
I just thought I would kind of unshroud some of this mystery, if that would be helpful for people. Mayor Isgro, members of the City Council, and members of the city staff, my name is Reagan LaRochelle of LaRochelle Consulting. I'm here this evening with Kennebec Realty Partners. Kennebec Realty Partners owns 155, 165 Main Street and is preparing for a significant investment in the downtown coming up as soon as possible. I just wanted to give, for those of you who weren't able to be at the TIF committee meetings, a little background about the Dupre family and also a little bit of information about the project if you think that might be helpful for you. Great. So first I would like to introduce the three partners, Justin Dupre, Thomas Dupre Sr., and Thomas Dupre Jr. Justin is, great, thank you for standing up. Justin is a graduate of Colby College and the University of Maine Law School. He lives in Brunswick currently, but has been investing in Waterville for the past 10 years, as the mayor indicated. Thomas Sr. recently moved to Maine and is currently living in China. He has a background in engineering and finance. And Thomas Jr. went to Brown University and has a background in construction and project management. The three have already made investments in the community, renovating several single-family homes on Carroll Street, and they've owned 155, 165 Main Street since 2015. So, as we've talked about, what we're requesting is that this property that the Dupre's own, Kennebec Realty Partners own, be removed from the downtown TIF district, and then a new TIF application be created. And to answer the questions is for some of the people in the audience, the 10-day notice of public hearing indicates that the entire TIF application is on file at City Hall, and that anyone in the public can go and review that during that 10-day period, as well as come to the public hearing and answer questions. So I wanted to first kind of specify that so people are aware of that. And just a little bit of information about the project, which will be detailed more in the application. The renovation is estimated to be working on 52,200 square feet on 4 levels of the 2 buildings. The plans for redevelopment include, and just so everyone understands, 155 Main Street is the 2-story building, 165 Main Street is the 3-story building. There is plans for an 11,000 square foot craft brewery in the basement level of the 2 buildings, and a 5,200 square feet of function space in that basement. On the main floor, there's plans to include a bowling alley, a restaurant, and a brew pub with outdoor patio space on that first level. 155 Main Street, which is this 2-story building, there's plans to have office space on the 2nd floor, and on the 2nd and 3rd floor of 165 Main Street, there would be market rate apartments. So that's what the estimate is right now. Looking at construction estimates and costs, including a new roof, new windows, working on the facade, an elevator, they're looking to spend about $10.5 million on renovating that property. Mayor Isgro just indicated some people in their right mind might tear it down, but not my clients.
Well, we're happy about that.
No, and I think that the really significant thing about this project is that instead of renovating this property and waiting for people to come and inhabit it, they will be running these businesses themselves. So they're basically doubly invested in this project. And so, again, what we're asking for tonight is just the okay to present an application to you in the future for the TIF district. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them from the council or the audience.
Wonderful. Thank you.
No? Great.
Beer and bowling, you can see why I said this is a project for like everybody who lives around here. All right, with that, we'll call for a vote. All in favor? Wonderful. Thank you very much. Next, we are on a discussion item about property tax foreclosures.
To discuss.
Second.
I just want to make you aware that unfortunately this year, a little bit more foreclosures than we've had the last 2 or 3 years. So there are 4 properties, and you see them listed on the memo, that was attached to this item. And one of the four, we hope will have the taxes paid by the time March 20th comes around. So the foreclosure date was February 8th. And the city's policy gives an additional 30 days of grace time for someone to come in and redeem their property. To do that, they have to not only pay the taxes that are outstanding for this one foreclosure year, but the other 2 years that are also due. But the first one listed at 15 Grove Street may have that opportunity of being paid off, we hope, very much. So, because we certainly don't want to take ownership of any of these. The one on Violet Avenue, Councilor Mayo, you're familiar with that one?
See, I disagree. I think it's okay if we take ownership of that one. It's been a dangerous property in that neighborhood for years.
That one, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
certainly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be glad to get that.
Yeah,
Be glad to take care of
And
that.
move it on to an owner who will take care of it.
right. And I assume it can be rehabbed and reused, but we'll find that out soon enough. So just, again, want to make sure you knew this is looming. Unfortunately, 2 of the properties are occupied at the present time, so we're going to have to deal with that question. What do we do with the occupants? And we've gone through this before, so I mean, we approach it in as compassionate a way as possible. We're not anxious to remove anyone, have anyone kicked out of where they're living. We just have to have some agreement going forward, since we're then the owner, how that's going to be managed. So, again, it was an information item. Just wanted to make sure you knew about it before it happened.
Thank you.
Any questions? Am I next?
No, we have community notes.
Oh.
Next up is community notes, which is a time where if anybody has something they would like to say or tell us about, now would be the time to do it. Just ask you to come to the podium, state your name, tell us where you live, and what you have to say.
Hi, I'm Cindy Jacobs. I live in Ward 4, but I represent the Waterville Public Library. And I just have to read to you this letter that was in the newspaper, the letters to the editor. It couldn't have been, we didn't write it. Let's just put it that way. It starts off, the Waterville Public Library is much more than a media service. The welcoming culture of the library creates a fertile space for community members to be together. The library is a community hub. In our society today, there are few places that function as a commons, where people can come together, which is what makes the library a gift to the community. The reasons for using the library are diverse and beyond the simple search of media. For instance, I often meet people there who are new to the community and looking to connect. They bring their children to read books. They are welcomed by the librarian. They learn about the programs the library offers, such as craft afternoons on Tuesday, and decide to participate. While the kids enjoy making crafts that connect with nature in their imaginations, the caregivers meet with each other and the library staff, participating in conversation and community without even knowing it. From there, curiosity is shared and sparked. The next thing you know, people are sharing what they are passionate about with each other. They learn from and benefit from each other. Being in each other's space of life would not happen for most of us, and it would not happen to this degree and high quality that does not happen without the library. The cycle continues and spreads. The librarian listens to our passions, questions, and inspirations, and then connects us to stories, ideas, or others, enriching our lives. This all happens so smoothly that friendships develop among the patrons and staff. We realize that we are not separated, but we share in community life together. The library is a tide, rising all ships for those of us who are lucky enough to participate in this community gift. And it's from Nicholas Leichling, and he's from Fairfield.
Wow.
And it couldn't have been nicer if we tried. So I just wanted you all to know that. And he pays a non-resident fee to come.
Anybody else? Yes.
I wanted to thank everyone who came out for the community forum on the opioid crisis. We had more than 70 people here listening to Gordon Smith, the director of opiate response, our own police chief Massey, Charlotte Warren, the representative from District 84, and Lisa Halley. And we got the opportunity to talk amongst ourselves as well. I wanted to remind people that we have the opportunity to support Project Operation Hope, that's run by the police department. They're having a dance this Saturday at the Legion Event Center. It's a fundraiser for Operation Hope that provides treatment to people who need it for substance use disorder. And to let you know that we're going to have a second community forum on April 29th, and I'll have more information about that as the date approaches.
Thank you. Anybody else for community notes?
Hi, my name is Tim Heastrom. I live at 31 Village Green Road. I got three questions, basically. The Webb Road and the West River Road are in dire need of repair. And my question to you guys is, what is the plan to fix that road? Because it seems like every road outside of the Waterville city limits gets repaved, but once you hit the Waterville city limits, it stops. And I don't know why.
On the Webb Road, that work should start this year, 2019. It's a joint project between the city and Maine Department of Transportation. So from the I-95 exit or entrance to West River Road, that will be redone. Rebuilt, actually, made it wider, culverts replaced.
Repaved.
Yeah, yes.
Not just patches.
Webb Road, not Trafton.
I'm sorry.
Webb and West River Road.
Yes, then I'm mixed up. I'm talking about the Trafton Road. Webb Road, there are no immediate plans to fix the Webb Road because it's a joint. The Webb Road is still a state aid road, which means it's state responsibility, some city. We were talking with them just in the last 2 weeks about the Webb Road and the idea of having that project done. One thing that's come up that's complicated that is they're rebuilding the bridge over the Webb Road, the I-95 bridge over the road. And that's going to cause quite a bit of disturbance around that bridge. And so I think the decision made, I'd have to double check it, was that it would be delayed a year, so more like 2020.
Well, the Webb Road was paved all the way except like up to the Waterville city limit, and then it was stopped. And it was just repaved last
Now, that's a
summer?
state aid road,
Yeah,
correct?
and that's on the Oakland side.
Correct.
Right.
So with a state aid road, it used to be, years and years ago, the state actually paid to get these roads taken care of. What they started to do 2 governors ago and has continued to now is to say, well, we know it's terrible. We don't have any money for it. If you want to move up on the list, show us some money. So that we've tried to not only fix Waterville roads, but we're trying to figure out how to, like every time we do a bond issue, which we're actually in discussions for now, for things like roads, say, all right, which one of these projects with the state do we need to take on? So the state will actually kick in money as well for their road. But
Okay, so there are no plans to fix those anytime in the near future?
And aren't they doing the West River Road, Mike? Didn't you tell me that?
Now, on the West River Road, that's entirely a state road, and that is on the docket. If I can have your,
it wasn't Sydney that fixed it, it was the state.
No, I understand
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I understand that, but for some reason, it seems like all the roads that lead into, or however you want to describe it, lead into or out of the city of Waterville, don't get paved, but from there on, they do. And the Webb Road and the West River Road are prime examples of that. It's like everything stops at Waterville, and it's like, it just seems a little coincidental that it happens to stop at Waterville.
Mike, there's on the Public Works page, is the road maintenance plan?
yeah, but it won't address his 2 questions. But if you give me your phone number or your email address, I will get back to you.
My email address is beheist@yahoo.com.
I got it. He didn't, but I did.
And my last question is I think it's great what the city's doing with the downtown area, okay? But you have a section that's right behind you that is nothing but a litter bin. There's trash everywhere, all over the concourse. There's no trash cans anywhere. The city doesn't seem to provide any. The business owners don't seem to provide any. But if the city doesn't provide them, the city should at least be able to issue some sort of ordinance to require the businesses to do that. So it's not a pig pen, and you got to take your family over there to look at trash just sprawled everywhere. I don't know if anybody's been over there, but I'll be glad to walk you over there right now. I guarantee it'll be a pigsty.
So if you're talking about the area behind the stores.
No, I'm talking about the area in front of the stores. There's not one trash can in that whole entire concourse of businesses across the whole front. Not one.
Private property.
Yeah, and Mike, I could speak on that a little bit because I've registered a complaint, obviously with you and Dan Bradstreet, which Dan Bradstreet has reacted to it. Code enforcement has reacted to some of the litter in front and in the back of the Dollar Tree. They seem to be the primary violator of a lot of the litter that is spread out across the concourse in that area. And they certainly are being watched. They are having some visits, and management has assured Dan Bradstreet that that's going higher up the chain of command for Dollar Tree corporate to respond more to that. So I can tell you that there are some things happening on the city end in trying to address that issue.
I'll give you this.
What's hard about putting a trash can?
I was going to say, I'll give you this. In front of the stores, that's private property. It's not ours. However, I think you're right. And I think we should actually hear this criticism that we don't do a great job at picking up the trash, and we should do better. So I will actually just
Well, there's somebody within the city, I think, could enforce the fact that it's continually occurring. And it's not just Dollar Tree, by the way.
No, it isn't, but they are a primary focus of being a perpetrator of that, of obviously.
It's all down by the Chinese restaurant in that whole triangle there, too. It's a mess. And that's not from any business, it's from people leaving trash.
We should take the criticism, and I
Yeah, it's a multifaceted problem, there's no doubt about it. This private business obviously has some sway in there that they should be doing something. I know that as a business, you know, being me big in business, I would be called on the carpet as far as that's concerned, and having that being, you know, the public eye is a big thing, and they're not going to come visit your store.
Right, but the criticism of the city property is noted, because I appreciate you bringing it forward, and I don't want you to feel like we're blowing it off and blaming other people. We could do a better job, and I appreciate that
Well, I
you
mean,
brought
I've
it up.
gone as far as almost bought a trash can myself and stuck it out on the sidewalk out there, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, Mike, manager's report.
Budget items, and I even added one, so there's item 8. Most of these are just information items and reminders. Thursday night, joint meeting with the school, right? 5:30 at the midday cafeteria. There will be a meal at 6 o'clock.
Better be.
Everybody knows that Saturday is the strategic planning session at the police station. Thursday morning, we're going to meet with Craig Freshley, is a fellow that's going to be the facilitator on Saturday. So Craig will be here Thursday morning to just talk about what we would like him to do on Saturday. And I know the mayor's going to be there, and some of you are going to be there. Thank you. We're very happy that we got 2 proposals regarding development at Hedda Falls. Those 2 came in last Thursday, and the Hedda Falls Planning Committee is going to be interviewing both the developers, and that, I think, will happen, hopefully, over the next 2 weeks. They'll do that, and they'll, at some point, recommend to you which developer that the city can start working with regarding a plan for Hedda Falls. I mean, this is something that's going to take months and months to do, but we're on that road of getting something done there, which is pretty exciting, I think. Streetlights, it's pretty much a no-brainer now. in the municipal community, replacing your street lights with LED lights is the way to go. Pay the upfront costs to get rid of the old lights and put in the new, and within 3 or 4 years, they've paid for themselves easily. So we're working to get proposals for that street light replacement work, which I hope, and obviously those proposals will come to you for approval. I think the bids for that are due March 29th, so you may see something in April. Item number 5, 2 weeks from tonight, and I'm going to say this as much for the audience as for you two, at 6 o'clock, before your council meeting, there'll be a presentation in this room on the Castongway Square redesign. So I think it's a very exciting process that we've gone through so far. Over 150 people have taken part in the, I don't know how many meetings we've had, a few, in this room mostly. So the planners are going to come forward on March 19th at 6 p.m. To show the city what their recommendations are for final design. At that point, the council can decide how to proceed. Well, you don't have to decide that night how to proceed, but remember that the redesign for Castongway Square is an item within the build grant budget for the Main Street project. Castongway Square is one item in that entire project. So the money to do anything at Castongway Square would come from that grant. March 19th. We're working on, the idea of redesigning the concourse and trying to create additional spaces. So we are ready to issue an RFP to hire an engineering firm to look at making changes in the concourse, hopefully creating new spaces. One of the plans we've looked at, which seems to be the favored one so far, would create an additional 72 spaces in the concourse. The process for that is we're going to continue with the work of finding an engineering firm. That will come back to you as to whoever we recommend hiring. We'll work with the parking committee too, so they're aware of what's proposed for changes in the concourse. So I think that process could bring us right into the summer, and it's possible we could do some of this work in the concourse parking lot this year. Possible. Schedule for budget meetings, I'd like to keep that for the very end when I talked with you during executive session, just to pass out a new schedule. The last item, which is not on your sheet, is negotiations with the unions. We have 4 contracts we're negotiating this spring. The first negotiating session with the union representing the police is Friday morning. Councilor Coelho has volunteered to attend. Thank you. And we have the AFSCME contract, and then fire and police. And I think that also Councilor Thomas has indicated he might be able to take part. You were the third. Yep. Thank you. Okay. I was pointing, I was close. Questions? Yes, sir.
The Castongway Square design process was really quite amazing because every single member of the community had an opportunity to put input.
Yep.
It really was grassroots. There was no one that should have been left out with input. And, if you don't like the design, well, it should have been at the meeting. But I was really impressed how much power the average resident had to really shape the future of that square.
Yeah, you could actually create shapes like we did that night, right?
Yeah.
And there's still going to be plenty of time for public input. That doesn't mean like what came out of there is exactly what's going to happen.
Right. Thank you. That's a big part.
Right.
This design is a concept. When we get down to actually constructing things, 2 years from now, at Castongway Square could end up different.
I hope they kind of stick up, really kind of reflect what the people wanted when they showed up to design it, so rather than, change it drastically. That
Right.
It's not that recognizable anymore. Really, that part was a good process, I think.
Yep.
Just a question regarding the parking enforcement. I know we went increase the fees and we got the money to hire someone.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a timeline at all about when that?
I wish Chief Massey was here because I can't answer that with a lot of certainty. We're advertising,
Right.
and, you know, I think it's probably safe for me to say in April for sure. We'd be starting up. Yep.
A question about the Concourse Park.
Yes.
Because I was over at Yard Goods on Friday, and Colby cars everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
What process has happened to speak with Mr. Green about getting these student cars out of the concourse? Has anything happened since the last discussion?
No. No. I mean, the city's limited as to what we can do, but we've certainly talked about having this person we're going to hire pay special attention to that area. And when he or she sees students, they believes are students coming out of this building or coming in that have parked there, to go over and ask them to please not do it in the future. We don't have an ordinance that says Colby students may not park in these spots, but we can certainly do some education.
Yeah. 'Cause it is legal to park there.
It is legal to park there.
Legal to park there. For them.
They have other places they should be parking,
Yep.
and that's what we need to do.
Yep.
And Colby needs to do is remind them, you have other places. You can park in the all-day spaces over there. You don't need to be that close. You're 18, 19, 20 years old. You can park over there.
Mike, are you done with manager's report?
Yep.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.